Welcome everybody into another edition of Warm Weather Fans, the Sun Belt podcast. My name is Brian Stone, joined once again this week by Zeke Palermo and Matt Miguez. We're here to talk about bowl season. It's fully here. It's in full effect. I didn't think it was legal to schedule a game on the same day as Army Navy. I thought that was disrespecting the troops personally. But they went ahead and they did it anyway, so we'll get into that here in a minute. But first, before we kick off here, Matt, how's it going? And then we'll throw it to Zeke and get started here.
Oh man, I'm doing good. Getting ready for Christmas. My house was a disaster, so my lovely wife and I spent the entire day cleaning it. I did take a nap halfway in between, which, whatever. And my tank let me down today, so that's awesome.
Zeke, how's it going for you?
A little better than Matt. Just kind of sat watching football. I felt the same way. I believe the Celebration Bowl has always been the same weekend as Army Navy, but I didn't know FBS teams were playing. And maybe it's because it's the Salute to Veterans Bowl where we're trying to find some thematic theme for this weekend, or I didn't like it because drew attention away from what should be the most exciting game every year.
Matt, can I get just really quick before we jump into the rest of this? Can I get like a gut reaction from you? So we found out today that Harvey Broussard is also going to Houston to now catch passes with former Cajun Zion Chris. What? I posted the meme just because I thought it was too good to pass up. But I was just like, what are sort of your, like, are you like, I hate Willie Fritz? Like, where are you at with this right now?
Look, it's hard to look at a kid going for a better opportunity, which in their opinion, they feel like it's a better opportunity. Whether it turns out to be or not, we'll see. It's hard to deny a kid that, right? But no, I mean, as somebody who is a fan of the Cajuns, it is brutal to see such talented young guys go to Houston together, a year apart. But look, if Harvey feels like this is a better opportunity for him and he gets to reunite with a quarterback that he had a lot of good chemistry with, then I mean, look, more power to him. I hope it works out. I think the Cajuns have enough depth at both of those positions to make some things interesting. Because the Walker Howard news is official.
That was literally the thing I was going to bring up next. Is like, how are we feeling? Walker Howard hater Harvey Broussard ?
No, I think Harvey.
I'm playing with.
No, I know. I think Harvey was leaving regardless. Because man, look, if you looked at film this year, as talented as he is and as dynamic of a playmaker as he was, it never felt like he fit. It always kind of felt like he was the number 3, number 4 option in the offense, and it just, he probably feels that he's a number 1 or a number 2 on most teams in the country. So let him go find that out, right? And I think the much bigger loss for the Cajuns from this week is Terrence Carter entering the transfer portal. I mean, that is just a brutal blow. And so, again, though, it's hard to deny a kid when he feels like it's a better opportunity. So, look, no hard feelings. I wish him nothing but the best, but it sucks to see those two guys go for sure.
Yeah. Well, speaking of former Sunbelt quarterbacks, we had a bowl game again take place on Saturday, and it was Western Michigan, who was led by former Old Dominion quarterback Hayden Wolf.
Yeah.
Went in and took a big fat L to basically South Alabama's backup offense. Because
Blair Davenport.
Bishop Davenport.
Even better. An even better name.
Do you know who my father is? Bishop Davenport the third. Is what it sounds like. Yeah, I mean, they didn't have Fluff Bothwell is in the portal,
Correct.
so he's presumably not coming back to Mobile. Gio Lopez was injured for this one, so you got the Bishop Davenport experience. He looked good, man. Like I don't know whether we need to have like an open camp or something next year, but I don't know. Like it feels like now these South Alabama like skill position players, I'm like, were they just starting the wrong guys? Like, no offense. I mean, to Fluff and Geo, but I mean, and you can make the level of competition argument all you want, but it's like Bullock had 130 yards and a score. Davenport threw for 271, 2 touchdowns. He did throw a pick, but he had a 50-yard rushing touchdown in the third quarter. Do we need to have more open competition in Mobile, boys?
Yeah, I think there absolutely should be.
Not a quarterback.
Oh,
I think. I mean, the skill positions they've been low. The skill positions have been like fairly mediocre. South Al for several years has always had like one very high volume receiver where they just force feed him the ball 80, 90 catches every year. I don't think it's a matter of, starting the wrong guys. Consider this was Western Michigan. This isn't like they were beaten up on an ACC school in the bowl game. This is a 6-6 MAC team. Bishop Davenport played well in this game, but Gio Lopez confirmed he's coming back. His position is as secure as anyone else in the Sun Belts. Kentrell Bullock ran for a ton in this game. He's been a junior. He's been involved in this offense all year. I think this was just a normal, above average set or a South Al performance.
no, you see, I'm going to disagree completely.
See, that's why I'm in between you two. I can keep you apart.
You say it's a 6-6 MAC school. South Alabama's a 6-6 Sun Belt school.
Yeah.
And yes, we can all agree that the Sun Belt is a better overall conference than the MAC. I think we can all agree on that. But at this point, saying a 6-6 MAC team and a 6-6 Sun Belt team are any different is really splitting hairs.
But like if you go back to the Arkansas State game, right, which South Al lost, they had Kentrell Bullock playing in that game. Gio Lopez threw for nearly 300 yards. Pritchett was playing in that game. So it's not like in these losses it was, if only we had this one guy. It's that there is a definite ceiling on this team, and that did not change because they won a bowl game.
I just think in terms of the quarterback perspective, I think Bishop Davenport played well enough last night to at least earn a competition in the spring.
Gio Lopez was so good for them all year.
I think he was fine, but I also do acknowledge that the weapons for them at the pass catcher spots like really haven't been there. Historically, you're like looking at a Jalen Tolbert or a Jalen Wayne, like when they had those guys, and those guys were like big time impact receivers. And you don't really, it's kind of what Louisiana was doing to an extent, where it's like receiver by committee a little bit, where it's like, we don't know who's gonna be our number one pass catcher this week, and we're not really manufacturing touches for anybody because no one really jumps off the page at you.
I'll say just to give you an asterisk, outside of Jamal Pritchett, who led the conference in receiving yards and in catches.
Right. Yeah. So, but I mean, again, you can just double. I know that a lot of teams didn't because he obviously put up stats, but you could just double one guy. They don't have a plethora of weapons where you're like, oh my gosh, like I have to account for so much. Like Bothwell's in the portal. I just checked his stats like before we logged on. He didn't even run for like 900 yards this year. Like that's crazy to me to go into the portal as a freshman and be like, I cracked 800 yards on, however many carries. Great. It's one thing when it's Ahmad Hardy and it's like, I am the offense. I'm the only reason ULM has wins. Like, again, a 6-6 school, that is desperate for anybody to step up and help out Gio Lopez, and it's just kind of like, other than Pritchett, Bothwell showed up sometimes, and sometimes he was invisible. So I don't know, but
so we're a year.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, we're a year into Major Applewhite now. I feel like this is the same team in terms of ceiling floor as it was under Kane Womack.
It's way too early for that.
I don't think it was, because we saw what the ceiling under Kane Womack was. It was like a 10-2 season where I think they lost to Troy 2 years ago, like 12-9 or something, 10-9. And if they had won that game, they would have been undefeated in the Sun Belt and in the conference championship game, and probably would have walked over. Who was in it 2 years ago? App? Yeah. They would have walked over that App school. Like, both of the teams in the West were just so much better than everyone else in the East.
Yeah.
So,
Zeke, I love you, but not only do I disagree with you, it's way too early to even have that conversation.
Sure.
I'm not talking about floors and ceilings until at least 2 years.
No, I think what we found is the floor for both seems similar. Like, the end of the Kane Womack era, it's great that he went and got a defensive coordinator job, but like, they were not good last year, and they had very, very high expectations. Consistently,
I think, especially now, early on in their Sun Belt tenure, their floor was really low. But post-pandemic, which is, it's so funny that that's what we refer to now in sense of time.
It's been 4 years. It's a full college cycle.
Right. Post-pandemic, I think their floor is consistently a 500 team, 6-6. Their ceiling, like Brian said, under Kane Womack, was a 10-win conference championship contender. We'll see what it is under Major Applewhite. I don't think it's that high, but could it be close? Maybe.
I think, I think when you move from Womack to Applewhite, I think your ceiling gets lowered, like, almost by default, because I think Womack was a hell of a head coach. And I think if he had, I don't know if he just felt like, I'm sure he felt on some level, hey, if I go be the defensive coordinator at Alabama, I'll get better looks for like a P5.
You'll get a P4 job. Yeah.
But I also don't know if he kind of looked around at where South Alabama was at the end of last year and went, this isn't heading in the right direction for me.
Yeah, he saw that too.
So I think you can take both things kind of into account. But again, a great win for South Alabama. They roll up 537 yards of offense. Again, I know it was Western Michigan. It's a MAC school, whatever. But again, considering they were basically starting a backup offense, and still, again, Davenport stepped up. You had Bullock step up. You had Webb go for 6 catches, 182 yards, and 2 scores. I think you're just happy with that, because you at least know, hey, if something happens to one of our guys, we're not totally screwed. So, yeah, it was a good win for them. And, again, I've not really ever been high on Hayden Wolf, so him kind of playing like crap a little bit in this game doesn't really surprise me all that much. I felt like, when they had those skill position guys like Jennings and the running back, I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now, Blake Watson, that Wolf was a weak link for them. And things haven't changed at Western Michigan. Let's just put it that way. So, it is what it is. South Alabama gets to end their season over 500. They're 7-6 and defeat Western Michigan 30-23. All right. So, did we want to talk about anything before we jump into? Was there anything else besides bowl?
The Marshall stuff. We is probably the most.
Yeah. Sorry, that totally slipped my mind. So Marshall opts out of their bowl game as a program. That was setting up. If everybody had been there, Huff included, Braxton, the whole 9. That would have been a really fun game against Army, because it would have been a really fun style clash matchup. But they had 25 guys in the portal. Someone said that there were additional like another 20 that were injured or something like that for the guys that weren't even in the portal. And they were basically like, we can't even field like a team right now is what a lot of people said. I don't know that that's 100% accurate. I think it would have been a really ugly version of that team. But if the entire coaching staff's gone, which you would imagine they are, then who would even be there to coach it? Like, besides maybe the janitor. How do we feel about this?
I've never seen anything like this.
The whole team?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
It's a little unprecedented. Look, I know a ton of people bring up. I've seen a ton of people bring up the LSU argument. When Ed Orgeron got fired, or right before Ed Orgeron got fired, and a bunch of players opted out of the bowl game and entered the transfer portal, and LSU had like 35 scholarship players, and John Trey Kirkland, who was a wide receiver, played quarterback because he was a quarterback in high school. Oh, well, LSU could play it. Why can't Marshall? Well, because it was stupid for LSU to play in that bowl game. That was dumb. Like let's be totally honest. A kid that was a fifth-year senior hadn't played quarterback in 5 years. Like, you didn't have a quarterback.
Yeah.
Let's be very, like, that was dumb for LSU to play it. LSU should have opted out of that bowl game. So it's not this, oh, you could have still played it. You're quitting, blah, blah, blah. Don't give me that. Don't do that. Look, your job as an athletic director and as a university is to not more than winning games. It's to protect these kids, right? Because they might be 18, 19, 20 years old, and legally that's an adult. But I think we can all attest that when we were 18, 19, we were still kids, right?
Yeah.
And so if you don't have enough players to healthfully go through a football game, then it's in the best interest of you and your program to back out. Now, I agree with some people that said, well, Marshall could have seen this coming. Could they have just not accepted the bowl game from the jump? Maybe. But at the time, they thought they'd have enough. So look, I kind of see both people's arguments. What I do wish, though, and I know I saw the statement from ULM about how their APR score just wasn't high enough. I get that. But, man, put a Sunbelt team in if a Sunbelt team opts out.
I would not have wanted to watch ULM play.
I'm sorry, you want to watch Louisiana Tech?
No, but I'm not going to watch that game either. I'm just saying, like, that ULM team, the way that they were backsliding at the end of the year and not having Ahmad Hardy because he's in the portal, that team would have looked like an expansion first year, like FCS call up level talent. Like, you want Aiden Armenta slinging it 50 times? Yeah, exactly.
No. Speaking of ULM, though, and coaching changes and whatnot, I'd love to pose this question to you. Unless, Zeke, you have something on the Marshall situation.
No, not really.
Bryant Vincent. His name has been floated around to replace Rich Rod at Jacksonville State.
I can't. I would want to see what, like, is the money situation that much better? Because I think it's. Here's the problem: a normal Sunbelt school, like take South Alabama, who's 6-6, just won a bowl game. I think if you are looking at it from that angle, it's a step down if you want to move from a school like that to Jacksonville State. But we've talked on ad nauseum about how bad ULM's situation is, both from like a money perspective, athletic department, like all of that stuff. So I think if you look around and you're Bryant Vincent, and Jacksonville State runs a very run-heavy offense, or did last year under Rich Rod, and that was the backbone of their team, and you're Bryant Vincent, and you're like, I want to run the football, like that's my identity. I wouldn't be shocked if he was just like,
is the money there, though? I don't know the Jacksonville State financial situation, but I can't imagine a team that just jumped up from FCS is beaten all ULM's in a pretty cruddy spot as well. I can't imagine it's significantly better, right? And Jacksonville State, I don't know. No, you're good.
They're also getting the buyout money from Rich Rod's contract from West Virginia, too. So I think that could help float it. If you're like, they had to buy Rich Rod out of the rest of his contract.
Right.
I don't know how long that was or what the buyout number was, but West Virginia clearly didn't have a problem paying it. And so, yeah, I mean, if you take that money and immediately go reinvest it in a coach where you're like, this guy runs a style of offense we want to run, because this is kind of what Rich Rod was doing. It might be a little more under center, but you teach a guy to put his hands under the center's butt. Like that's the difference. So right. I'm just like, yeah, stylistically it makes sense. I think you have to ask about from a money perspective, and just coaching at Jacksonville State, who just won their conference title, give you a better chance to win over the long term than it does at ULM, where let's be frank, it's a rebuilding project, and it has been for as long as I can remember. So no matter who the coach has been.
I don't know. I have no real form. I hadn't heard of this before, so I don't have formed thoughts. It just, that feels like for Jacksonville State, after winning a conference championship, you would imagine that you have a little bit more agency to pick maybe a better coach. Not that Brian Vincent has done a poor job in his first year at ULM. He did something there. But then for Brian Vincent, I'm not certain that that's a lateral or upward move. So that the idea of that perplexes me, because I don't know which way it would go or who it makes sense for.
You say that, Zeke, about having more agency, but who would be a fit for that spot at that point, right? Like you can go get yourself like a coaching cast off, the way that Rich Rod was. You could go get yourself a P5 offensive coordinator, and we've seen how that has come back to potentially bite a lot of teams. Or you grab a FCS head coach. And I think of those options, I probably would go with Vincent in that spot. Like, if those are the options on the table, would you rather have a guy who could be a coach for an FBS program right now? Because we've seen that Vincent can. He just hasn't identified someone at the quarterback spot that makes a difference yet. But would you rather do that or take a chance on a guy and kind of flip a coin and go, this could either go really poorly or really great, and we have no idea?
Right. And I ask because I'm still really on the fence about the concept. Your stance has typically been to go to the FCS. That's kind of been a theme of a lot of our discussions this year, is, Brian, that you advocate and convinced me that the best option is often to dip into the FCS. So why is it different here?
Because Sunbelt teams don't typically have the agency to hire a sitting FBS head coach from somewhere else. That's the difference.
Sure.
We're not talking about the SEC, where it's we could go out and grab any group of 5 coach we want. If we wanted to go get Chadwell tomorrow in-house at Ole Miss or Auburn or whatever, if we wanted to go grab Chadwell from Liberty right now, Auburn in this exercise, we could just go pay his buyout no matter what. And we don't have to even think twice about it. And you don't have that leeway. So the reason why the Huff move is so big for Southern Miss, and the reason why this would be kind of an answer for them, is because typically at the group of 5 level, you can't just pick up and go, we're just going to go grab some guy, whoever we got our eye on. That's not how it works. So that's the difference for me.
I don't know. I'm still really lukewarm about the whole idea for both sides. But if this happens, I don't know. I'll have to form an opinion at some point.
Can I ask one last thing before we move on to the bowl previews? How do we feel about Blake Anderson being back in the Sun Belt?
He was before my time. This is up to y'all.
He was good at Arkansas State. I mean, until, there was a lot of like personal stuff at the end that happened, like his wife passing away, which was like a big thing. And it just kind of seemed like things had kind of run its course in Jonesboro, especially toward the end. Like he had a great run, but they were like squeaking out like 5-7, 6-6 years at the end there. But now he gets to go be the OC for Charles Huff at Southern Miss. And ironically, it was off the field stuff that got him out of Utah State as well. So that seems to be the kind of theme for him at a lot of his stops is like, it's not the on the field stuff a lot of times. It's the stuff that happens off of it.
Wow. I'm glad to see that's what you're hitching your wagon onto, Charles Huff.
He's a great coach. He's a great recruiter. He is an incredible offensive mind. So him running the offense at Southern Miss with Charles Huff, who's also a pretty good offensive mind, is concerning for the rest of the Sun Belt. Now,
what is he? Oh, sorry, Matt.
No, go ahead.
Well, it was a question of what does he do? Is the offense going to align with what Huff was doing at Marshall? Like, what were those Arkansas State offenses?
Yeah, it's pretty close.
It's pretty spready, right? They always liked to air it out. I mean, for example, Ryan Applin, the offensive coordinator at Georgia Southern, was one of Blake's best quarterbacks at Arkansas State.
Okay.
There was another guy,
Justice Hansen.
Yeah.
He was a beast.
There was a stretch for 4 or 5 years where Blake Anderson always had a stud quarterback.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, his offenses were always dynamic. They always put up points. Man, I remember when UL would play Arkansas State, because obviously they're both in the West. They played each other every year. It was constantly, a 43-37 just shootout game. So yeah, no, I think that's a great hire by Southern Miss, and again, great coach, great recruiter.
Can I ask one additional question, because I haven't been following this? Daggy, the OC that was the OC at Marshall under Huff, what happened to him? He didn't. I'm like, did he get a job somewhere? Did he not want to follow Huff? Like, I never heard anything.
I think he just got a job at one of the old Pac-12. I think he got a job at Arizona. He moved on. And he did get a job. Was he at all ever related to Jarrett Daggy?
Yeah,
they are.
They're like brothers or something.
Okay, that guy.
Yeah,
that guy sucks.
Seth Daggy is now the offensive coordinator at Arizona.
Okay.
I appreciate Zeke slipping in at the end. That guy sucked, and then he's just like moving on.
All right, Garrett Daggy.
Yeah.
You want to talk about it? You want to talk about a guy that had high expectations that didn't work out? Oof.
Him and he and DJU can both share a locker for that one.
And Tate Rodemaker.
Okay.
Hey,
that was y'all. That wasn't me at all. I didn't say shit.
Look, as long as Walker Howard doesn't join that list, I don't care.
I just want to be clear. I didn't say a word when Tate Rodemaker got brought in. I was like, this guy does not have it. And y'all were like, yeah, no, this guy's going to be good. And I was like,
Brian Stone, the quarterback whisperer.
Not even the quarterback whisperer, but like I literally made this point in the preseason. I go, if he couldn't be good at Florida State with the weapons they had around him, what is he going to do at Southern Miss? And the answer is not play.
My thought was there would be a drop in competition, and then maybe he'd be better with a drop in competition. But
I've come to realize that that's overrated. You can't just take a guy who would be on the end of a bench at a P4 and stick him at a G5 and automatically go, yep, no problems here.
That's fair.
All right, let's get into bowl previews. So we'll start with this first one here. So this coming Wednesday, at 5:30 on ESPN, we've got the Boca Raton Bowl between Western Kentucky and James Madison. JMU is a 6.5 point favorite. Over under is 52.5. I'm taking JMU minus 6.5, and I'll go ahead and give you my reason behind it. Western Kentucky's quarterback is transferring out. So the guy that threw for 2,800 yards and 23 touchdowns, he will not be there, I assume. And as up and down as Alonzo Barnett has been this year, at least he will be attending the football game. And that's more than I can say for Western Kentucky's quarterback. So,
who's TJ Finley, right?
No, Caden Veltkamp.
No, it's Veltkamp.
What happened to TJ Finley?
Finley's in the portal again.
Finley barely played for them this year. He threw 70 passes all year.
He got
I spent
benched,
the whole year thinking he was there.
He was there.
He was. He got benched for Veltkamp,
who had an incredible year.
I don't know how I missed this.
Yeah. So Caden Veltkamp got thrown into their bowl game last year as a freshman.
Okay.
And led this like 35-point comeback for them to win it.
Yep.
He was insane. And then they brought in TJ Finley, and he lost his job early on, but after like 2 games, Finley sucked. And so they put in Veltkamp, and I mean, he finished with 2,800 passing yards, 23 touchdowns, only 10 interceptions. He also added like 400 yards on the ground.
Yeah.
Like,
Veltkamp, I was not familiar with your game.
And he's a big dude too.
Yeah,
I think he's like 6'5", 220 or something like
he's
that.
He's listed on ESPN as 6'6", 236.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah,
that's a hoss.
I watched.
Where are we at?
Yeah, I watched Western Kentucky, or had bits of it on when they played Jacksonville State in the conference championship. They were outclassed by Jacksonville State. Give me James Madison by 6.5.
Yeah, I'll take James Madison as well. And one more thought on Caden Veltkamp. Kentucky Wildcats, come on down. We have your new quarterback right here in state.
Well, his brother just committed to Georgia Southern, so
don't you start! Don't you start!
Hey, Caden,
don't
how's it
you
going?
start!
Wouldn't you love to play with your brother?
JC French, remember?
He's fine. He's not. He's not 6'6", 237.
You hear that? You hear that, Zeke? The Camaro drives nice, but now there's a Maserati out for sale. That
would you not trade a Camaro for a Maserati?
I mean, probably. I get
he kind of shot himself in the foot with that one.
I get your point, but what I'm saying is you've been so high on JC French, and now you're.
I've been pretty up and down with him. Like, he's had some good games for sure, but he's also had some games where, I mean, we don't win the Marshall game if he stays healthy. Like, sorry, it is what it is. Like, I didn't want to tell Bryson that last week, but I was like, listen, man, if Dexter Williams doesn't come in, they lose that Marshall game. Like, it is what it is. So, again, if you're handing me a 6'6", 237-pound quarterback who just threw for 2,800 yards and 23 touchdowns, yes, please. I'll take her.
No, that's right.
All right. Speaking of Georgia Southern, on Thursday,
Matt, did we get a pick from you on this?
Yeah, James Madison.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that.
On Thursday at 7 p.m. ESPN2, the RL Carriers New Orleans Bowl with Georgia Southern and Sam Houston. Georgia Southern is a 6-point favorite. Over/under is 48.5. I'm going to take Georgia Southern -6. It's mostly because of the coaching situation at Sam Houston. The fact that Keeler is already in Philadelphia coaching, getting ready for Temple, to coach Temple. And also, I think I saw this stat that Sam Houston had like a top 50 defense in the country, but like a bottom 30 offense or something like that. So the fact that they can't presumably take advantage of Georgia Southern's Achilles heel, which is their defense, leads me to believe that I think it's kind of a matchup that it'll be low scoring, I think, but I think Southern ultimately ends up winning because everybody is still there. Like, we're not having a mass exodus of players.
One thing to keep an eye on. Sam Houston did have the 29th best rushing offense in the country. What put their total offense down is that their passing offense is atrocious.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I mean, really bad. But they do have a really good running back, Jay Ducker. So keep an eye on him. I do think Georgia Southern wins this game, but I can't say -6.
I like the under here, under 48.5. As you said there, offense, Sam Houston, very poor, but the defense has been exceptional. They won games 10-7, 9-3. Even their losses, 21-11, were pretty stout defensively. And we've seen Southern struggle in games against good defenses. So I don't think either team scores above 24 here. I think the winning team will have 21 or 24. So give me the under.
Matt, what's your pick, like, officially?
Sam Houston +6.
Okay. Zeke, ironically, the only time Sam Houston's offense looked good, I thought, was when they played Texas State.
Well, yeah, wasn't that like 40-38 or something like that?
Yeah, it was like 41-34 or something was the final of that one.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't believe it because I picked Texas State thinking, oh, Sam Houston's got this awful offense, and there they go, putting up 41 points. So who knows? All right, so last game that we're going to discuss here on this episode, what we'll do is next Sunday we'll come back, we'll talk about these 3 bowl games, break them down, and then do the final ones that are all taking place after Christmas. So we'll be here to talk about that next Sunday. The last one, December 23rd at 11 a.m. Whew, what a time to kick off. 11 a.m. on a Monday. Jeez. The Myrtle Beach Bowl, Coastal Carolina doesn't even have to leave their locker room. They play UTSA. UTSA is an 8.5-point favorite. Over-unders 55.5. I'm going to take UTSA because both Vasco and Noah Kim are in the portal.
Yep.
Maybe this Tad Hudson guy that Coastal fans have been gassing up, maybe he shows up and pulls a Velt camp in the bowl game. But I'm going to have to see it to believe it. So give me UTSA because Coastal Carolina, here's the thing with me in Coastal Carolina. Their quarterback position was so bad all year long that if they couldn't find the time to pull the trigger on Hudson during the season and they had to wait for 2 guys to transfer out or whoever starts for them, that's not a great sign for that guy's prospects. So I'm taking UTSA.
I agree.
Yeah, this team, they're also missing some of their best defensive pieces. Matthew McDoom also in the portal. I think he already transferred or, agreed to go to Cincinnati. So this is a really depleted team, even though it'll practically be a home game for them.
Things I think are going to be pretty dire for Tim Beck in year 3, unless like some of the young guys that he's been recruiting the last couple of years like really step up. It already doesn't look great, and then you add on like we have to find a quarterback on top of it, and that's just I wouldn't be shocked if they went 3-9 next year and he was out of a job.
He's got to hit a home run with a quarterback, whether it be in the portal or a guy that they have in the building already that we don't know about yet. He's got to hit a home run at quarterback, or else, like you said, 3-9, 4-8 looks to be realistic for them next year, and that's not going to be good for his future.
We're at a point where, gosh, almost all of the coaches in the conference have been replaced within the past 2 years. So there's not really a whole long list of guys that could be the next coach to lead, but I'd imagine Tim Beck is probably the next coach to get replaced. Probably not going to upgrade. It'll probably be a firing or a buyout.
I think Desermo and Helton are the only 2 coaches that have been in their position longer than 2 years.
Dez isn't going anywhere, right? And
no.
Helton's probably in the same spot as Tim Beck is, where like you got to figure it out this year. Helton probably has 1 extra year over Beck just because they've actually won a little bit more than even with Grayson McCall. Tim Beck wasn't doing it. So it's got to be back, right?
Kenny's going into year 3. Oh, Butch Jones. Butch Jones has been there, 4 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've conceded he's going to stay there forever, and I'm never going to like that team.
Did Butch Jones key your car?
You're such a get off my lawn grandpa when it comes to Arkansas State. Just get off my lawn. Leave me alone.
I don't know. I'm an Arkansas State truther. What can I say?
Truther.
Yeah, and you're a Texas State fraud.
Wake up.
Also an Arkansas State truther.
Oh my God.
Wake up, sheeple.
Wake up, sheeple. Butch Jones, not legit.
Well, we'll see. I think next season, I mean, I know he just signed a fat extension, but I think next season's going to be a real litmus test for him because frankly, I know we're getting off topic, but Arkansas State on my screen is the next bowl game to come up, but Jalen Rayner didn't progress or I thought play all that well this year. And they were lucky that the conference kind of took a step back because I think any other year, we talked about this on a previous episode, but I think any other year they're fighting for bowl eligibility. They're not 7-5. I think they're a 5-7, 6-6 team otherwise. And Zeke, you talked about a while ago the South Alabama Arkansas State game. I don't know that there's going to be a game that goes down from the Sun Belt this year that baffles me more than the result of that one. I think it was 18-16 was the final. Mm-hmm. And I was just neither of these defenses are good. What are we doing here? No. But that pretty much does it for all of the content we have. We wanted to split it up, but because we didn't want to be, at the end of bowl season, recapping games on the last bowl games on January 3rd for the Sun Belt. We didn't want to be here on January 4th talking about a game that happened on, December 14th. So we're trying to kind of chop it up here. Matt, do you want to let people know where they can find you on socials, and then we can throw it to Zeke and get out of here?
You can find me on social as always at Miguez Matt. Just awaiting the Cajuns in the New Mexico Bowl against TCU, and looking forward to the future of Walker Howard.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter as well. You can see it right below me here at Zeke Palermo, ZekePalermo. Sunbelt, it's just bowl games left for me. Georgia State's been snoozing for 3 weeks now, so it's just a matter of seeing if Del McGee can really recruit like he's cut up to be. We're also starting to just look at college football playoffs. We're real excited for 12 teams. I don't think this is the right format, but it's better than what we had, so I'm excited to be where we're at.
God.
Zeke, have you seen the composite scores from 24/7 about Georgia State? You better shut your mouth about Del McGee.
You're such a P4 elitist.
Me?
You're such a P4 elitist. It's not the right format.
It's not the right format.
Cry me a river.
No, whoa! You think I think it's not the right format, but for a different reason than what you're insinuating.
Okay, well then let's dive in.
What we need 8 teams.
They're not going to decrease.
I think if anything, they're going up to 16.
Let's be perfectly frank. They're not going to go, 12's too many.
I think the fact that you can win your conference and not make the college football playoffs is a joke. That's my discontent with it. I don't care what level, because there's not free movement between the conferences, right? This is a little off topic. I know we're trying to sign off here, right? But if there was free movement between the conferences, I would say that you can discredit, they play in Conference USA or they play in the Sun Belt, they play in the MAC. You cannot do that, because I guarantee if given the opportunity, every G5 school would play in the SEC or the Big Ten. The money's better. Doesn't matter if you go 0-12 every year. Look at what Vanderbilt, up until this year, Vanderbilt was the joke of the SEC, but granted, they had a baseball team, they better other sport football perspective. They were just taking a check every week. If any team could just freely flow from conference to conference, and a good team could say, I just want to join Conference USA and go 12-0, that's not the case. That's not how this works. You can only play the teams in front of you. And so to win a conference championship and not make the playoffs
No, I agree
is a
with
joke because what else is there? Winning has to matter. Winning your conference has to matter, and winning games has to matter. And the format right now as it exists with the committee, I agree that we need more transparency and we need more clearly defined guidelines. But whereas the SEC folks, the Lane Kiffins of the world, are saying, well, I need the guidelines so that I can tell you why it doesn't favor me. I need the guidelines just defined. This wishy-washy bullcrap is obscene and is ruining football. And pretty soon we're going to have a big schism. And the folks that just want the Big Ten and the SEC to be their college football playoffs will have their wish, and they're going to enjoy it for 2 years, and then it's going to be miserable. Every other conference, every other team, there's going to be 7 teams in college football that are relegated to not just the FCS, but like the FCS is now going to be the third tier of college football. Then there's going to be G5, which is already kind of tier 2, but it's going to be official, and it's going to be miserable. And we need to fix it ASAP.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, you're talking about the wishy-washy, which I agree with you. They absolutely have been. But as long as there's a human element to it, they're going to be. Now, don't get me wrong. The BCS computer had its flaws, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you would have to find a way to fix that. But as long as there is a human bias, they're going to pick the big dogs. The big dogs will always have their seat at the table. Because let's be perfectly honest. We were all 3 floored that SMU got in over Bama.
No.
No.
Okay,
because that was the right decision.
It was the right decision, but I didn't think they were going to do it.
Well, like Zeke said, winning your conference and stuff matters until you're Florida State last year and Kirk Herbstreit just doesn't want you in the playoff. And then it's like, oh, well, now it doesn't matter because our quarterback got hurt. So I guess we're not allowed to go because a bunch of guys who are 1,000 years old sat in a room and watched the conference championship and went, this was impressive, but not impressive enough. Goodbye. Get them out of here. And I'm just like, I agree with a lot of what Zeke says. I think the only way to go about it to make it to where we're not just put the best teams the teams with the best recruiting classes in every single year is you have to move it away from people who are like ADs and are like too involved in the sport. And like, if you have, let's say you've got, I don't know, like West Virginia's AD is Andrew Luck's dad. Like, if he has like an inherent bias of like, I want one of schools from our conference in because it makes the Big 12 look better. If they want Arizona State or whatever, and you don't know if Arizona State deserves to be there, I don't think you can have that kind of conflict of interest and come away with a pool of teams that everybody universally agrees on. I feel like,
sure,
I'm not saying we need to like hand it off to sports writers like we do for voting for like MVP in the NFL and stuff, but there's too much inherent bias that already exists, and they're not willing or able to do anything about it. So again, we get a bunch of guys who saw the moon landing live on television in a room, getting their colostomy bags changed out, and they're like, oh, I remember when Roger Staubach played at Navy, and you're just like, Grandpa, we're talking about whether Indiana deserves to be in or not. What are we talking about? Like, again, I'm going to throw my dad under the bus a little bit here. My dad is roughly around those guys' age, and he called me the other day and was like, can you believe they let Indiana in over Alabama? I was like, yeah. It's called winning football games. What are you talking about? Like, I was like, when did we start looking at wins and losses and be like, yeah, you went 11-1, but you didn't play a schedule that I liked enough. These things are scheduled 5 years out, correct? Like, you don't have an option of who you play in your conference. So
the thought I keep coming back to is that, well, for one, like it's often brought up the UGA TCU game, right? And presumably what we're going to get when Indiana plays its game, right? Like, these teams more than likely will get blown out. However, in order for the SEC and the Big Ten and these big brand names to get any sort of benefit of the doubt, you need to keep proving it. And the way to do that is allow in smaller teams, less brand name teams into the college football playoffs. Because ultimately, if you're just going to beat them, it is a non-issue, right? So let these teams in, let an SMU in, let an Army in even. I feel like Army should be in the college football playoffs. They will probably get curb stomped in the first round because ultimately you can't win playing the style of football they play against a Tennessee or against a Penn State,
Notre Dame.
right? You can't do that. Notre Dame, you can't do that. But what you can do is prove that. We have to, at a certain point, like, I'm willing to give you the benefit of the doubt. I'm willing to give you the higher rated prospects and more media coverage and more money. But you need to prove it on a year-to-year basis. Otherwise, we are relying on outdated, assumptions and with how quickly college football is turning over, it's a new roster every year. It's a new conference every year. It's a new team every year. So if the gap is so big that you shouldn't ever even be considering an Army into the college football playoffs, why not just let them in and lose?
Yeah, just prove it.
Just prove it.
Yeah.
And so
here's the thing too, and I think Boise is a really good kind of gateway drug to this for the committee because they can talk themselves into, well, Boise has been good for a long time at the G5 level. Like whether those were all consecutive years or not, we're not talking about that point because they definitely had some down seasons. But I think the committee can look at a team like Boise and go, we feel okay letting them in because, they're 12-1. Their only loss is to the number one team in the country by, I think it was like a field goal. Like, but again, they still are a G5. I think it would be a tougher pill for them to swallow if it was like Liberty last year or something. And you're like, I don't know, this team has zero cachet with me. Like they have no really history of overachievement. Like, but Boise, they can kind of talk themselves into feeling good about it, which is fine with me because I want to see Ashton Jeanty play, more football. It's always a good time for me. All right, we were actually in the process of closing this podcast out, shockingly. You can find us on all of our socials. It's down here at the bottom of the page. They're all highlighted. Zeke made this really sweet graphic for us to podcast in. Really appreciate him working on that. YouTube.com/@warmweatherfans, @warmweatherfans on X, TikTok, same deal. Send us emails, questions, comments, concerns. I might not read those. warmweatherfans@gmail.com. This has been another edition of Warm Weather Fans. We will be back next Sunday to talk over the bowl games that are happening this week and preview the ones for after Christmas Day. Thanks, everybody.